Okay, yes. Welcome everybody to February's monthly museum musings offered by the Nebraska Museums Association. Since we weren't able to have our conference last year, we postponed it to this year. We wanted to offer some kind of educational opportunities and a time for discussion of museum topics kind of throughout the year. So we've been doing these for actually quite a few months now. So we're happy that people are able to join us. I'm sure more people will, join in a few minutes too. But this month we have Annie Mumgaard from Morrill Hall and Katie Karr from Hastings Museum, and Morrill Hall in Lincoln and Katie in Hastings. They're going to talk to us about virtual field trips. But I thought first, before we get started, we'd have everybody introduce themselves since we don't have a huge group right now. I'll start. I'm Kelly Bacon. I work in the State Historic Preservation Office at History Nebraska, and I am currently the Nebraska Museums Association president. So, Annie, you want to go next?
I'm Annie Mumgaard. I am the virtual learning coordinator at the University of Nebraska State Museum, most commonly known as Morrill Hall. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Katie.
I'm Katie. I'm at the Hastings Museum. I do education programs, the planetarium, and volunteer coordinating. And as you were saying earlier, I do have to leave at 11:30 to teach in person. It's very exciting. But if you ever have questions, feel free to send me an email. I'll make sure to drop that in the chat too.
Okay, great. Karen, is it Butner?
Yep, that's me. You got it right. I'm from Sturr Museum in Grand Island, so just down the road a little bit from Hastings, and I was able to sneak away. I don't have to be around any of the in-person classes today, but it's really great to have the kids back, I can say. I don't know, did I miss something? Sorry, I was sending an email.
No, you're fine. We're just kind of introducing each other. So.
Okay.
Kirsten.
Yes, I'm Kirsten Parker, and I'm with the Golden Spike.
Great. In North Platte, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
David Wolf.
I'm Dave Wolf. I'm with Legacy of the Plains Museum here in Gary, further down the road than Hastings.
Yeah.
So,
Aaron.
I'm Erin Hauser. I'm the curator at the Saunders County Historical Society in Wahoo, Nebraska.
Great. And Karen Wagner.
Hi, I'm Karen Wagner, and I am the archivist for the Nebraska State Capitol. Now, while I don't do a lot of public tours generally, I'm interested in kind of seeing how I can broaden the access to the archives during the HVAC project that is completely eliminated all public access to the space. So,
Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Kurth. I'm the educator at the Lazadra Museum outside of Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, wow, wonderful. And then Margot. Sorry, Margot, we're just introducing ourselves. So.
Okay, I couldn't get the audio a while ago, so I'm from Cass County Historical Society.
Yeah. Great. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and I'll let Annie and Katie take it away.
So we had talked previously, Annie and I had, this is going to be pretty informal. So anytime we say something that doesn't make sense, feel free to just shout it out and be like, hey, go back. We're going to kind of start it off. Annie has some great slides that are just an introduction of how to get thinking about these kinds of programming. Even if you've done in-person programming, virtual is a whole other ball field. And then after that, we're each going to share some things we wish we would have known before we started, and how we worked around those things. So I'm going to turn it over to Annie to go over those slides, and then we'll each share our experiences.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I am Annie. My title is Virtual Learning Coordinator at the Morrill Hall. I started off as just a gallery educator, working very part-time. And we got a chance to we kind of had a perfect storm. We had an education director who had heard of virtual learning We had a donor who was interested in supporting new initiatives. And then we had me, and my background is in film and video. So I kind of come with a very interesting background to be able to kind of start this up. And the reason I tell you all that was in 2014, is because I have since become a passionate advocate for virtual learning programs, not just virtual field trips, but virtual learning. And this last spring, it's kind of what the joke was, I was part-time up till March of 2020, 20 hours a week. And March 2020 came, and we all know what happened. We're part of the university, and the university basically closed down, and you had to become essential personnel to be able to be in the building. Well, suddenly I get the phone call asking, will you be essential personnel for us? Because through our virtual learning programs was the way the museum could keep the doors open, keep our activities happening, keeping the museum kind of alive, if you will. So they bumped me up to 3/4 time. So I just tell you all that because I don't want to, whatever we tell you, to freak you out going, you know, she must work full time and do this. The other reason I tell you that is because I kind of had to learn from people who had been doing it for a while. I went to the Durham and the Henry Doorly Zoo, but there were not, and Homestead, the national parks. There weren't a lot of people doing what we're talking about doing now. And so I'm a real passionate that if you have any questions or follow up, please go ahead. I'll put my email in there because there's no need for you to recreate the wheel. There's plenty of children out there that need what we do. There's plenty of ability and donors who would like to support what we do. So it's my passion to kind of help you understand how to do that. So this summer, we actually got asked, we are a Smithsonian Associate Museum, and we actually got asked to present about our program to their online conference. And so we were like, wow, it was quite an honor. We're kind of like, well, you know, we're this medium-sized museum, middle of the country in a medium-sized city. And we had about 40 institutions from across the country join that because you guys are in good company. All museums are looking at how to do this. So I'm just going to share with you real quick some of the things we shared with them because we do not need me to go. That was a 2-hour training. Oh, Kelly,
I'm doing that right now. Yep, I am.
So I'm just going to start with some real basics of like, what did we do? What is the program? And what are the basics that you need? And then Kelly will take it, and then we'll have lots of time for questions. And let's see here.
And then Annie, if you can kind of watch, since I don't have the ability right now then to add additional participants. So if you could check the waiting room too, if that's possible.
I will do that. First of all, I want to make sure that I have the right thing up so none of you have to look at anything you don't really want to look at, which would be my my full laptop, right? All right, so here we go. So we did this program, as I said, this summer, and there lots of people are looking to do this. Just an FYI, we always start with a map of where we are located. We always start with a photo of where we are located. Just one of those little tips I'll put out there right now. You got to give context because in virtual world, you could be anywhere. We don't do maps like this on the screen all the time anymore. We actually went to holding one because I have become a fierce believer in holding the physical object is much better. Well, like I said, we always give context. All right, so 2014 is when we started our path. And in 2014, this is what it looked like. We had one program and we had that huge cart and we started with what we knew, which was elephants. We had gallery programs that we did in Elephant Hall. We also had a kit that we would send out to people. So we kind of merged those two together and created a program in which there was a hands-on activity beforehand where they used part of our kit and then they came to the virtual and then we used our elephants as learning. Since then, you can see we started with, we had 30 programs our first year, and our goal has always been to double every year since about 16. We've never quite done that, so we changed it to at least growing by 25%, and we've been able to do that every year. Fortunately, this year, I think we will be on par of staying even, which I feel very fortunate to be able to do, and that just comes from having created some relationships and so forth. So we started with one program. We did that program 30 times in 1 year. And then last year we had 7 programs. And we did that 100 and some times. this is how we have changed. You can see that's me on the right, and you can see that we have changed our cart. We've gone smaller, we've gone more compact, and this is a Surface Pro right here, which we will talk a little bit more about how that helps you out. But we've changed a little bit about how we deliver, but we don't change what we deliver, and we've added to what we deliver, but the basics are the same of teaching kids. All right, sorry here. So we started in 2014, we had one program. Literally this time last year, we had 7 programs. Thanks to the pandemic, and all of the effort was put into what are we gonna do virtually, we added 10 programs to our repertoire, so we're now up to 17 programs. Unfortunately, us, like many museums, we have downsized in some of our staff, and so we are not able to, our planetarium is closed at the moment, so we had to cut back on our brand new planetarium programs, which were really great, and a few other things. But we still have 17, we're up to 17 programs. Okay, how do we do this, and what do we tell others to think about? Here is my most basic list. So what we say is the first thing is you have to think about is who can create and who can provide the programs. You need a designated person. If you don't designate somebody, maybe it's you as the educator, it really will, just like most any other initiative, it's not going to stick. So you have to have a who can create it and who can provide it. How are you going to market it? It's not true if you make it, they will come. They probably will come easier than they did 5 years ago, but you do still have to market. You have to think about what you need for equipment, not as big as you think. You need to have a support network. This is a fantastic one. There's other groups out there who are great. The ESUs are great. All of the teachers that you know that actually come to you live are great support network. You have to think who that is. And then you always have to think about, well, who is your primary audience? And that's for each program, grade level, adults, kids, what are you gonna do? And then you have to really think about why are you doing it? My perspective is if you can Google it and you can find 5 other ways to learn what it is that you want to put out there, then you really do have to look, well, how can we make it differ? What can we add to what's out there? Because obviously, just other people think it's great to do as well. All right, I'm having so much trouble with my window here. I'm really sorry, I gotta get rid of this.
Audio just left.
All right, so basically, what do you need to have? Well, you need a presenter and educator just like you do in a gallery program. You need a camera. Every one of you, you're looking at me, you have a camera. You need a microphone. Every one of you said hello, you have a microphone. And you need internet connection. Obviously, you're there. So my point is, you have the technology that you need to actually do a program. Is it the best? Is it the easiest to use? Probably not, but you do have your most basics to get started. The next is what is your content and your marketing. I have some really basic, 6 basic rules of creation. My first one is the first thing to look at is with whatever it is you want to do, what is your audience? And once you figure it out, if my audience is 1st through 3rd graders, my rule of engagement is what do you want them to do, know, say, or feel by the end of the virtual? Is this one where they're going to go away and have learned a nugget? Is it one they're going to feel really good about? Wow, are they going to say something? So that's something to think about. My second rule is what do they see? This is a virtual medium. This is a visual medium. So you have to think about what are they seeing? If they're seeing you stand there and go want, 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 like I'm doing right now, by and large, for most people, it's not the greatest learning vehicle. So think about, well, am I going to be holding things up? Am I going to be standing by them? Am I going to use it in my green screen? What are they going to see? The next one is, how are you going to engage them? How are you going to pull them through that screen? Now, by and large, kids have no problem getting engaged with you with a screen. They're so very used to it. This is not a barrier. It can be a barrier with adults. It can be a middle school and high school kids. It's a bigger barrier. They won't talk to you, so you have to figure out other ways to engage them. So that's what goes back to who's your audience and what can you do to engage them. Then you have to think about, you're going to add any learning tools to it. We are a member of CILC, the Center for Interactive Learning Community. It's a national, international, and you can be a member too. But they just had some training and they talked about that teachers, it didn't used to be, but teachers now are much more interested in programs that have a pre or a post activity to support the learning within the virtual, which is really a good news for us because it means teachers are starting to use this more as learning tools versus just, oh, let's go do them because we got an hour to spare. So you think about what it might your learning tools be. Technology, what are you going to use? Technology, what are you going to let go of? What do you not need to use? I know I went through this really fast and you know, we can go back over them. So then people always ask us, well, what do you mean by engagement? And engagement is interaction. How are you helping your audience to interact with your content and your information? First thing we think about is timing. The younger they are, the more they need. Like if you're doing pre-K through, we have a program pre-K through second, we have them doing something every 5 minutes, whether they're listening, actively listening, whether they're standing up and trying to jump like a mountain lion, whether we have them try to dig, totally unnecessary things to do, but it keeps them looking at us and interacting with their information. Like I said, so what can you do? Physical object, motion. We use apps. We have used Kahoots with middle schoolers and high schoolers because, as we said, they have a hard time interacting with you. So we had them use an app on their phone, which worked a lot better when they're in the classroom and weren't using their device as the way to connect, but it still works. But that's also something you might think about. Do I need that? Do I not need that? How can I do that? Use an app. Your rule of thumb is, are you using it for learning? Are you using it to engage them? Are you using it because it's just cool? And there is reason to just be cool. Like I said, high schoolers are and middle schoolers are kind of hard to keep with you. So if you got a cool thing to engage them with, it can be, you can use it. Some of those sample examples of like an app, as I said, we have used Kahoots. We're just starting to use Jamboard. Zoom itself has a whiteboard that we have been using. Mentimeter is really a cool app because it's where you can make more of those word clouds really quick. So there's a lot of cool apps out there. You choose how's it going to work and how easily can your audience connect to it. I'm not going to show you this so much. This is something we have used with first and second graders. This was on the whiteboard. If you're on Zoom right now, I believe you should be able to do it. If you take your cursor to the top of your screen, you should have a little thing comes across that says annotate, and you can choose a pen, you can choose hit annotate. When that little black screen comes up, it says mute, stop video. If you hit annotate, it's going to give you some choices of text, drawing, stamping. There you go, somebody has already found it. And you can start, so if I said to you, tell me what do insects have on their bodies? And kids can circle, they can stamp on it. We did this for our virtual camps last year. And like I said, we had this with first and second graders and they loved it. The nice thing is if I don't like what you did, I can undo it. I can say, yeah, that's really not a great thing. And I can undo everything. I can clear everything. I can say, oops, let's start over. So you do have full control and so forth. So that is on your very own whiteboard, as you can see right here in your own Zoom. Let me get out of annotate because if I don't, I keep clicking. All right. I'm going to tell you real quick, how do we create a program, and how did we create a program for a very hard place to create a program for? Ashfall Fossil Beds is one of our sister museums, and it is out in Royal, Nebraska. I love Rick and Sandy and everybody works out there, but they're so funny because I talk about them being rural and they're like, we are not. I said, you're off the beaten track. They go, we are not off the beaten track. I'm like, pardon me, you're right. I'm just used to if it's a 2-lane highway and you have to get off the 2-lane highway to get there, my city perspective is you're off the beaten track. And so my apologies. I do not mean to be a city slicker, but anyway, they're kind of hard to get to and their Wi-Fi was slow. So we had to figure those things out. So the question is, what can we do? They wanted us to create a virtual program out here. So first of all, I looked and said, well, if I'm looking at Ashfall, what is it that they do? And this is my Google search on them. And I don't know if you know this, but there's been about 2 or 3 really good documentaries made about ashfall. So I'm like, there's very little we can add to the conversation here that you can't already look up. So let's take a deep breath. What do we have that you can't get in a documentary? So what we realized is what we had is that, well, we can go into the dig bed. That is the dig bed under the barn. So this is the decisions we made. Our audience, we decided it was going to be a very general, non-standards-based program, and it could go from K through 12th grade. Non-standards is important. We have most of our programs are standards-based as a way to help teachers justify using class time. But this one is non-standards. And what they were going to learn about is paleontology, and they were going to learn about it by us using physical object, mostly the dig bed itself. We were going to use PowerPoint, just like I am, to give background information, and then they were going to get a personal tour, which means, so how are we going to do that? So we had to create equipment. At Ashfall, they don't keep their equipment in the barn because it can get to -10. It can also get to 110. We worked with a company to help us figure out how to do this because I am not that smart. And they were like, what's that range again? And I'm like, yeah, -10 to 110. Can you get me some equipment that can do that? We've worked with them on several other things since then, and they said, you never ask us anything easy. I'm like, very good, earn your pay. But we got him this cart that moves very easily from about, over a large expansive sidewalk. Big screen because you want to be able to see things when you move away, and the Surface Pro. The reason of the Surface Pro is he can access his apps there, he can access Zoom there, he's on Wi-Fi, but he can also take that Surface Pro out. At the moment, he is standing, when he gives his presentation, he's standing about right there. That's Daniel. He then takes that Surface Pro and he walks over here and he leans over it and he shows some of the fossils. But not to stop there, he then goes over here, he walks into the beds, and he goes over here and he shows them fossils from inside there. Nobody, if you go in person, you can't go in there. If you are watching their gallery programs, you can't get in there. So that was our new way of doing it. And then this, as you can see, here is, see, there you go. If you don't clear your annotate, that's what happens, it follows you. There's Sandy, she took the Surface Pro in. She's using her Surface Pro as a camera, looking at her, showing how a paleontologist scrapes, and then she also gave close-ups of some different fossils in there. So that is how we took it to that program. I'm gonna stop share here. Gave you a whole lot. I know it was super fast, but like I said, I'm here for questions, and I'll put my email in the chat. Katie, take it away.
So we have been toying with the idea at the museum to do virtual for a while. A lot of our teachers have asked us to, just because they have to determine why they're using bus time instead of class time, and it's easier to argue 45 minutes versus the hour to get here, their program, and an hour to get back. So we offer 6 programs. We made the mistake of getting a giant cart. Some things we didn't think about is we're an older museum, and the giant cart doesn't like to go through some of the old doorways. They're too narrow. We didn't think about where do we have outlets, because the cart needs to be plugged in. So the area we want to present at, can we plug our cart in? We have a lot of glass. So finding, and of course at museum, you take your spotlight and you put it on the artifact, which is great if you're standing there, but then if you add a screen there, there's just a lot of stuff that can come up. We have kind of toyed with it and perfected a few things. Like Annie said, a lot of it we do tends to be what Zoom already has. We use Zoom because the ESUs we work with use Zoom. Other places don't use Zoom, so I would definitely check with your ESU teacher, see what your schools are using that come. 9 out of 10, they will use Zoom. And then otherwise, like we've had a Facebook do it once, like through the Messenger. That was really awkward. Don't recommend doing that one.
Omaha does Teams. That's the other big one.
Teams, yeah. So I'm gonna actually, you can see another icon that says Katie's iPad. I'm gonna show you our setup a little bit. This is also what we do. I'm switching cameras too, so you can see me better. This is our dark kitchen room. I'm gonna move that real quick and then I will turn on. There we go. So with that, I will show you. So make sure you're on gallery view so you can see the iPad 1 moving. So this is how you all look right now. You can wave to yourselves. I definitely encourage a bigger screen. If you're just one-on-one with a school, it's not that big of a deal because you only need to see 2 boxes. In our case, we usually see 3 because we ditch our cart quite a bit. And then we're like, look at this cool thing over here. The fun ladder, it's beautiful. Whatever you gotta do. It is nice having a really big screen because otherwise you start going like this, forgetting that they're watching everything that you're doing. So that's super fun. So let's see, so there's our cart. It doesn't look that big until you start going on the side. That's my phone. Fun fact, always make sure that's muted. There we go. So it's a little bit wider. It's hard to move. Once it gets going, there's no stopping it, so you just kind of hope no one else is there. What Annie has switched to, that little cart, definitely recommend when you're looking at it. Those can still hold big TVs. They're still great. Over here, we have a dock cam. This has been one of our best investments that we've made. Ours was only about $100. I'm gonna switch my main camera to the dock cam so I can show you kind of how we use it. So my philosophy when I'm making program is very similar. I want to know what I'm doing different than a textbook. So if a textbook is already doing it, why am I doing it? And when you're virtual, you're flat. Even your 3D objects, so if I put my water bottle here, it's still pretty flat. But I'm allowing them to see a real thing. We can get a lot closer. I can point to whatever I need to point at. I can flip it the right way so they don't have to crank their heads, which is kind of nice to do. It just allows you to show artifacts. And that's something we like to get things from our collection area. So it's things, if they were to come to us, it's not something they would have been able to see otherwise. It's an added perk. Another big tip we have for you is find out what's special about your museum. So many people, whenever I've given them a program and they find out I'm from Hastings Museum, they're like, Kool-Aid. What do you know about Kool-Aid? So we actually have 5 very different programs on Kool-Aid. And that's what we started with virtual. It's what we knew the most. We have no other competition really. No one else can be like Edwin Perkins gives us a lot of money to talk about Kool-Aid. So we got that. I'm gonna pick on the North Platte Museum only because I've been there recently. You got really cool trains and like all this fun stuff you can look at that's like I'm gonna stereotype, any boy from the age of like 5 to 9, the second you show that train, you've got them. If you have a classic home, like let's be honest, early 1900s, late 1800s, they had a very weird taste in furniture. I'm sure you got something kind of odd. You can be like, here's this chair made out of bison horns. Why? He had a lot of money and wanted a chair made out of bison horns. Show some of that stuff off and really do it. If you're confined to your house, I know you and Ellie, you experience this a little bit more. We are actually in building. We have always been able to come to our building so we can show our actual exhibits. If not, see if you can get somebody in, or you can make videos. We've had it where we've walked through Kool-Aid before, and then as my video's playing, I'm telling you what you're seeing. You do have to line it up a little bit more, but it still allows them to see those things. We do a lot of interaction too. Our educators always joke that I go on camera and I'm an actress all of a sudden because my hands are going and we're dancing and we're whatevering. You probably already do that when you're in person. Times that by 10 and then you're ready for the screen. Everything you do has to be that much bigger and louder. Like in 20 minutes, I'm gonna be jamming out a song about dinosaurs and sea monsters. Everyone in the building gets to hear me. It will be a great time. And you can even do really little things. I try not to do anything on Zoom that the teacher is going to have to do. Yes, the teacher can give me a thumbs up on Zoom using the little emojis. The 20 kids behind her don't really care that she's doing that. So you want them to come up to the computer and do the annotating, or if they're on their own tablets, they can give you the thumbs up. If you give 2 answers, you can have standing and sitting, so now they're moving. A lot of stuff like that. And what's really fun is, in my opinion, online kind of can be a little bit more like laid back and casual. You get to have a more intimate connection with them. So that's kind of fun too, to play off of that. Let's see, I'm kind of looking over my notes real quick to see if there's any other, I wish I would have known. Yeah, mainly door frames. Where are your outlets? Can your camera get there? We also have a headset that we can put on. So if I'm out in I'm gonna say Elephant Hall now, Mammal Hall, where we have all of our animals, it echoes a lot. And the visitors around us don't necessarily want to know what Alliance second graders are doing in there. So I'll have my headset on. It makes it so they only hear me, I only hear them. And then you have the added perk of other visitors don't really come up to you and like tap your shoulder to ask about something, which is kind of nice because then they can see your teaching. If they walk past our screen, we usually say like, hey, we're talking to Alliance second grade right here. Where are you guys from? We make it like an organic thing. So our visitors don't feel like they can't come through an exhibit because we block it off pretty much. And then our on-screen people get to see like, oh, this is a real place. It's not like a textbook. Those are our main things. I think for the last bit, we were just going to kind of ask you guys, what are your specific questions? Because this is kind of a broad topic. Everyone's at different levels of this. And especially also depending on your comfort with Zoom, it kind of would change where you're at. So if you have a question, now's your time to shine.
I had a question. This is Sarah from the Lizadra Museum. We also use a document camera, but I have to say your image was much better than ours. So what kind of camera do you have, and how do you deal with the lighting? Because that's my biggest issue, is getting the lighting right.
Yes, so we have, I'm gonna cheat, an Epson camera. For lighting, I happen to be able to place it in a place now where there's not an overhead light. Mm-hmm. We have taken the flat boxes, like what beer comes in and pop, and made a little dome over it before, so we can control the light and the glare.
Okay.
Collections has gotten really nice and let me take things out of glass sometimes. I usually have to say pretty please really hard, but
right.
They'll eventually let me take it, especially if it's like the broken thing. And what's really nice about ours is there's a remote that we can use. So if I'm not by it, I can turn it on and be like, so now you're seeing this Pawnee pinch pot. Isn't it super cool? I'm going to zoom in on it and then I can chain it right back to me. So I would definitely recommend, if you get a document camera, see if it has a remote, because 9 out of 10 times that's going to be on a table you're not by. Or if you are, they don't necessarily need to see how cramped of a little TV tray you're working off of.
Okay.
And we also put a piece of white paper on the bottom, just so everything pops up. Or if it's a lighter object, we put a piece of black paper down, and we make sure it's the matte, non-glossy, and that helps too.
Okay. We are a lapidary art museum, so we have a lot of rocks and minerals, and I do a rock and mineral identification class, and it's like the only way that they can see the specimens, but the light just is terrible, and the little dinky light that's on the thing just doesn't do justice for the minerals. No. So those are some good tips. Thank you.
Yeah, especially I imagine once you get like mica out and you're like, see, it's shiny.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And all document cameras are not alike. We have a document camera we dislike immensely as well. And part of it is it just doesn't do the white balance well. And so if it doesn't work, it may just not work, but they're not that expensive. For those of you who don't have to do minerals, if you can do just like Katie did, you can take a second device, and that may be your phone, and you can make that into a document camera as well. we 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 have tended to just use the camera on top of our cart for extreme close-ups to do it, as well as we use a microscope in a screen, and then we take it of the screen. But
Interesting.
you don't have to get fancy, is my point, is like you just maybe sometimes have a second, however your setup might work.
Great.
And a lot of times your ESU representative will have equipment that they'll let you try before you buy anything. So I'm an ESU 9, and I'm pretty sure when we were getting hot and heavy this, he wanted to block my number. But he would Zoom with me like this so I could play with things, and he's just on his computer saying, yep, I see it, okay. And then he goes back to what he's doing. Yep, I hear you, fine. And we were using their equipment to see what we liked and what we didn't like. And a lot of it does have to do with lighting. We have either no lights in an area or 800 LED lights. There's no in between. So a lot of playing with that. And like I said, ESUs will have a lot of that equipment, so you don't have to gamble, is this what I want?
We started off with our lighting in our elephant hall. For you to know that we went to Home Depot and we bought a worker's light for in your garage. And it's an LED one, so it doesn't get too hot. And we for a couple of years, we're just using 3 of those. And it's nice now, we have now more of a photographic light that has a box like Katie was talking about. But we did use those because we needed to light a fairly big space. The elephants are kind of big. And so we found that was, and again, they were like $50, $70 at the hardware store.
I have a question, I guess, for both of you about how long are your programs? I mean, did you start out with a set time and then you realize that's too long or too short or whatever? So approximately how long are your programs?
So with ours, it depends on their grade. We do not go above 45 minutes. Even if they're high school, it's still 45. And that comes from, that's how long their class periods are. That's why we determine that for high school. I would say that like actual content, even at that level, is 30 minutes, and we leave some question time or technology glitch. About 4th grade and below, it jumps down to maybe 20 minutes of content. They might do a game or activity that makes the program 45, but me talking to them without them doing something in their class is about that long. Preschool, it's usually only 15 minutes virtually, just because after that, they're gone and their teacher can only wrangle the sheep for so long.
So our pre-K through 2nd grade pretty much are 30-minute programs. And I think you can go up to 30. We go up to 30, but like I said, you really need to be interacting with them like every 5 minutes or so. Then also, like once we get to, it depends on the program, like what we're working on, but 3rd grade on up, our programs go to 45 minutes. And the reason 45 minutes in high school is, like Katie says, is that's the time period for a period. And their periods might be 50, 55 minutes long, but they got to get in, they take attendance, and then you lose them. So yeah, those are pretty much tight. And for an adult, it's the same thing. Most adults don't, we're all getting better at looking at a screen, but we don't really like looking at a screen for a long, long time. So, 30, 35 minutes, as she says, of information, and then enough time. You might have a 45-minute program, but you're putting in a good pad in there for questions.
So my question is, how are you marketing these?
Oh, such a good question. Kristen, did we have a nice long phone conversation?
I think we did at one point in time.
We did. I was just how you when you see the golden spike. So how are we marketing them? So that is a really good question. And one, like I said, we're members of CILC, which is this international warehouse of providers like everybody on here. And that is a question we come back to. They have some professional education meetings once a month, and we keep coming back to it. And the reality is we do a vast majority of our marketing. Like I started off with just going to every conference that was held in Nebraska. trying to get the information into teachers' hands. The ESUs, for those of you who don't know, it's Educational Service Units. There's a map, and every part of the state of Nebraska has an ESU, and they have distance learning coordinators. They're your best friends, get to know them. They also have the ESU Central Committee or something like that, has a distance learning person. I send them flyers, they send them out to all their teachers. We do a lot through a lot of our lists that we have for our, like all the conferences I've gone to and all the names we've gotten, and we do it that way. So those are in Nebraska. I think some of your most basic ways is use your ESUs, use your teacher list you already have, and we're working on actually trying to talk more to administrators, those who make the decision. We haven't quite cracked that. I think we're getting closer because of the pandemic and those administrators having to figure out what is this technology thing. So that is kind of like the beast that you kind of have to keep using. I truly believe this is a business of relationships. And just like the teachers who always come to take your gallery programs, don't worry about the board member. I was actually thinking this, we have a very supportive board, very supportive of our virtual program. So if you have a board that's like going, no, we don't want to do this because we want people to come back, we don't want them to come visit us virtually, that is not how it works. I can tell you dozen stories of classrooms that took one of our virtual programs and the kids got so excited by what they saw that they wanted to come here for their field trip, and so that they did. So we've never had it be, oh, we lost a field trip because you did a virtual program with them and they felt like they already saw it. So we have a very supportive board. So another thing, if you need to convince your board that we need to get a donor or something like that, let me know, because I bet you I could hook you up to a board member who would could pitch that, yeah, we support this wholeheartedly. So that's how we do it. I don't know about what you're doing, Katie.
So we right now there is a site that I was going to look up and completely spaced off that Nebraska has just started with their schools where they will post content, and teachers have gotten kind of trained to look there for your things, and it's free to post there. Andrew from Nebraska is the one that does it.
Is it NVIS? Is that NVIS?
That's it, NVIS.
Hey, Kelly, if you could make me host again, I'll share it. I actually brought it up.
Yeah, and so all you have to do is email Andrew Easton, and I think that's actually on the page on how to get on there. It's totally free. We've gotten a few from there. A lot of it has just been, we find better results if it comes from an ESU member or a staffer at the school to send out the notification. Like sometimes they'll be like, oh, Hastings Museum, that's cool. And then it goes to the bottom of their inbox. But if it says like Greg Couts, who's our superintendent, oh, I need to read this right away, it's from the superintendent. And then they can also see like, he's supporting this, so I bet I can ask to go do this, and he's gonna say yes. So definitely get in. I luck out. I am born and raised in Hastings, so it's really easy to get into the schools that I went to. But yeah, get to know them really well. And I will be perfectly honest, if you are doing this to make money, I don't want to be this person, but you probably would not make money off of this alone. It would definitely enhance your school program offerings, and you could get more schools that come. But if you are thinking you're going to bring in thousands from this, just come a little lower on your cloud. You don't have to get off the cloud, but come a little lower, just a little bit lower. I still think they're highly worth it though.
So this is NVIS. If you just hit NVIS or ESUCC, this is where you will go. And it's super simple to put on here. And actually, this has grown immensely too. So Katie is right. Teachers are going much more to here. I forgot to say another part. I keep bringing it up. We are members of CILC, and CILC is a place to, if you're offering programs that you can go in and you, they can search for a variety of programs. It's free to be a teacher member. I'm always doing this wrong. Let's just say we want to search for rocks. Let's just say it's free to be a teacher. You can be a member on here for free. you have to have a membership as a provider. But so they have all kinds of people who are offering a variety of programs. This is a great place to go and check out. It's cilc.org. Do your research, see who's doing things like you do and how they're doing it. I went here 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and you know, looked at other natural history museums to see what they were doing in a variety of ways. And it's just really, really helpful. So that's cilc.org or NVIS ESUCC. So I forgot about CILC. CILC, we're members of that, and that's how we get a lot of more of our paid people who pay to take our programs. Katie is correct. I've talked to people who have been offering virtual learning of one sort or another for 20 years who say, you're not going to make money off of this. So we were talking about this. It's really important you know your why on why you're doing it. We are doing it, by and large, we're the state museum. So it was very important. It was like, if you can visit us, that's great. But if you can't visit us, we're not very much for the state. So it allows us to really take our stuff and be out there for the state. With that said, we have some donors who have chosen to give to scholarships. And because we have a scholarship thing, I think we provide more programs to our schools because they don't have to pay for it. So that's one way for donors to be a very integral part of the programming. And that scholarship then helps us to have staff to keep providing the programming. Our board also decided at one point, our friends of the board, like when we created the program at Ashfall, they said, what's the biggest thing you need at Ashfall? And we said, we need a scholarship fund so that people, when they, from Nebraska, they can take the program. Again, we're a state museum so that they can access it. So that is really helpful. But CILC is really great as a way to get your name out there on the national and international scene. We have done programs with kids in Florida, New York, California, we do Canada. This summer we had somebody from South Africa joined us. Israel, they joined us. It's pretty exciting when you have kids who say that to you. Then you start doing the math and you go, it's 8 o'clock at night there. Like, yeah,
Right.
what are you still doing up at 10 o'clock at night? Whatever, but yeah.
I will say too, if any of your schools have a one-on-one program, meaning each student has a device, see who the school works with. So we just got fiber cables through town. We hit them up like, hey, you are new to Hastings. You're supplying internet to the schools. You should supply them to use your internet to come do our program. Our fees are only, if you're in the area, it's free, and then it goes up. I think the most we charge is $45 for a program. But finding like unique donors like that usually don't get hit up to do things. So like any technology firms, if you have like a hardware store, like a computer hardware store, any like weird avenues you can think of, and those ones, because they're not being asked, like most of you guys are in relatively small areas. If you're anything like us, like Hastings has 26,000 probably people. It's the same like 10 big businesses that get asked for everything all the time. So if you can get creative with your donors, you could lock in a fairly set up donor.
So I'm just going to put a challenge out there because I'm looking at wherever y'all are coming from. And I would say that you could all turn around and be offering a program by next week. And the reason you could do it is that you are the experts in what content that you deliver. And teachers are constantly looking for the experts to talk to their kids. So you could take your laptop, let me just say, even in the state capitol, you could take it out to the hallway with the big murals. You could choose your mural, bring a light in from your garage this weekend, and you could have your architect talk to the kids about how this is 15 minutes, literally. You could contact the people on your teachers on your list saying, hey, spring break's coming up. If you just want to try it, hey, you want to talk to somebody for 15 minutes, blah, blah, blah. I bet you, I'll put money on it, they would do it. If I were at Stewart Museum, biggest thing I check at Stewart is, where's your Wi-Fi go? Where can you connect? And if it's just in the big museum, if it's just in the main building, then bring some of your costume people into there. And I would have someone in costume, in character, talk to the kids for 15 minutes. I mean, fourth graders, you know them, they all need to know Nebraska history. This would be another way that by next week, you could be offering a 15-minute, doing exactly what I'm doing here, talking straight to the screen. I'm using my Zoom. I'm in my office at home. That way I don't have to wear my mask. If I go into the museum, I have to mask up. But you know, you could go out to the trains. Every one of you could do something that you are the expert at. And you already probably have a sympathetic audience, and the teachers that love to come to your museum, but they can't do it this year. Feel free, contact them and say, hey, we're trying this out. You want to give it a shot? And Katie is absolutely correct. Every one of those ESU distance learning people are usually chomping at the bit. They have a lot of equipment sitting in their offices. Say I just talked to Annie from the Morrill Hall, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, she's out there doing it again. And she said you guys have equipment, because I know they do. And so does Katie. Katie says you have equipment. And this is something we want to try. So I would not get bogged down and like, we got to make this content. We've got to get the engagement. Boom, you could do it 15 minutes starting next week. Because you already know how. If you're already doing gallery programs, if you're already talking to kids, you already know how. What I would just say is simplify it just a tiny bit. And because what you see is really important. Kids can't look around at the whole hall to say, wow, those are amazing dioramas all over, amazing murals all over the Capitol. They can only see what you let them see. So whatever you let them see, make that the most interesting thing. The blizzard scene, oh my gosh. What couldn't you do with the blizzard scene from the weather we had this winter, you know, stuff like that. So that is my challenge I put out there, that y'all could be doing that. And you don't have to get hooked up. You could just see how it works. And then let Katie and I know and see if like, this did not work or this worked great. How can we do it better? I would be more than happy to chat that through.
Yeah, for sure. And if it's ever helpful, if you ever want to chime in on one of our virtuals, or you want to see us do a mock-up, we can show you like what we give the teacher beforehand, all that kind of stuff. And then you can sing and dance to dinosaurs, because who doesn't want to do that? Or we can go inside our planetarium and hook up the sky, whatever you guys want to do. I definitely recommend reaching out to places that do them. Like we've seen Annie teach a few times before we taught and stole all of her good ideas, so we didn't have to do it. We saw the Durham teach. We saw Peter teach out at the zoo. And a lot of schools are really cool about letting, hey, this is other museum person, they're gonna join in, they wanna do this too. We go and say like, hey, this is from Saunders Museum, you should definitely check out her program too. And now if you have a rapport with that teacher, she's now gonna be like, oh, I trust you. So if you're telling me to go over here, I'm gonna go over here now too. Teachers like people, like they find their person, and then whatever you tell them, like it helps get other people in the door too, for sure.
They're not running away screaming, Katie. Maybe.
No, I can tell that my second graders just got here though. So if it gets really loud, I'm close to where they come in. It sounds like they're all getting ready to go to the restroom. So you might hear a lot of very excited people. Oh, one weird tip I have for people, if you do virtual, if you can get a clear mask so they can see your facial reactions. I have a really big, if you can't see my face, I look like I'm kind of planning my murder for you or something. Like I get very stone-faced. So we actually, I'll grab mine, have a mask like this. It does leave a little bit of a glare on this particular camera because I have a light shining on me so I don't look like a ghost. And then they can see your smile. If you are naturally like a happy looking person, it's not so bad. I'm not that person, so they need to see my face.
Getting a headset is key to that though. And I'd suggest we just have a regular old kind of a gamer, smaller Wi-Fi headset that we use, and that's key.
That's exactly what we have too. And then you get to feel like, I kind of feel like a little bit cooler when I put it on, like I'm official.
I've been giving a lot of virtuals that later people would say, we brought so-and-so through to, and I'm like, there are other people in the room with me. And I have to say, when I was doing this all by myself in our museum last March and April, there were times that I literally said to kids, if you see anything move behind me, you let me know, because I'm not supposed to be, I'm here all alone. I didn't say it quite that way, but I was like, I am at the museum, so nothing's supposed to move. If you see it moving, let me know.
It's always fun when you get like the really big cities and like, oh yeah, we're not totally closed. We had a group from a ways away where they've been on lockdown essentially since March. I'm like, oh yeah, we're a little bit smaller. They're still here.
If I could offer some advice on reaching out, I worked up at the NRD here in Scottsbluff for 8 years, and I did the education outreach there. And I actually went to the schools with my stuff to say, hey, this is the stuff that we have to offer. Now with the virtual, you can actually zoom in, like do a meeting and say all you need is like 10, 15 minutes. And I did not have very good luck with ESU, with them getting the word out. I directly emailed each teacher. And I know it's kind of hard to do in Omaha and Lincoln, but if you can get those email addresses, I found it, and we went from one presentation in 1 year to 2 years ago. After my last year there, we did almost 250 in-class presentations with 5,000 kids. So getting that, the teachers are the ones that are going to do it. The principals aren't. They can tell them they're going to do it, but unless the teachers are buying in, they're not going to. But just word of mouth and the other teachers seeing, or the other kids seeing me walk through the building with stuff. Got to ask why, what can we do? And then, but virtually, teachers will tell other teachers, this is a really good program. This is not a really good program. So, so to me, that's the best way of getting out, at least to your schools individually. Where right now we've got all the equipment set up. We've got a couple programs ready to go-ish. My thing is just trying to figure out what our price point is, because we aren't a government, we're a private museum. So we're going to have to charge at least something. But just trying to find out what that price point is. So I'm actually just going to email all the principals in our area and be like, what do you guys think? 20 things for $400 or, something like that, where the whole school, that way they can just order it and then not have to worry about it, but then also get an individual one if they want. And then you also do schools, like we have a couple schools where they just have one class per grade. We have some really small schools, and then we've got some bigger schools. So it just gives them kind of more flexibility, but gives them some input on what that price could be. So,
price point, we didn't talk about that, but that is another thing. We kind of just looked around to see who was charging what. So you kind of have to figure that. I mean, if you don't have scholarships, our 30 minutes are $80 in Nebraska, and our 45 are 100, 125, something like that. But we've also been kind of messing around a little bit with the idea of subscription. So like we've been offering a 1 month a year, 1 day a month, where you can join a program for a building price. And it's one price for the building, but you can have as many connections in that building as you want. And that's like for $70 a building, they can come to the science chat for 45 minutes. And we've had, like last week, we only had 3 schools signed up, but we had over 500 kids because they had all their 4th grade classes connected. And, we didn't make a lot of tons, maybe because we didn't make it per classroom, but we did what our goal, our why is, which is getting the science out there and getting that at that. So I'm not sure we're going to do that for just our regular programs. We're not, just because we also have our scholarship ability, but subscriptions is another thing that providers keep thinking about doing, for one price, all your 4th graders, or for, get 3 programs for this price in this time frame type of thing. But
if you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
As I say, did you used to go around with and do like the octopus thing in the turbines? Not the octopus, that was the name of the app. Did you used to go into the apps to show the kids what the turbines, show the kids what they were doing? So
You
that's
talking
kind
to
of-
me?
Yeah.
No, I
No.
didn't do any of that. We're out here in Scottsbluff, so mine were mostly like water because we got half the irrigation districts in all of Nebraska are in Scottsbluff County. So we did a lot of water, a lot of groundwater, habitat, pollinate. I don't know. I really love bees, so I did a lot of pollinators and trees. I was able to get a part-time staffer, and she was part-time NRD, part-time Nebraska Forest Service. So we had like 20 different tree presentations for grades all the way from preschool all the way up to high school. So I don't know what the octopus thing. I don't know what.
It was an app and it allowed you to go up and, you know, I'm typing.
I think that's the, he's an NDLA. Is that all the letters?
Yeah, you know what I'm typing. Yeah.
Yeah, because, yeah, the nuclear guy, that does not help anybody else, but the nuclear guy, because he was talking about, he didn't have very good Wi-Fi because he doesn't leave the internet place, and like this app was part of.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's an NLDA.
No, we don't use any. I mean, I didn't use all my presentations before were in classroom.
Right.
The only problem with doing a subscription or like with multiple classrooms is you're going to get smaller and smaller, and trying to, like, I hated doing all school presentations. I avoided them as much as possible because you have 200 kids in the gym or whatever, and you can't pay attention. You can't connect with the students that quick, or with all of the students as well as you can with just one class. So you tend to lose more, and you tend to have more behavioral issues. Yeah. Although, you know, fourth graders, second graders, there were 75 of us in this little cramped classroom, and I had like this much space to walk around. If you can't tell, I am not a small man. So here are all these little kids on the floor, and I have no space to even sit down. So we really tried to keep it to just one classroom, but I understand, you know, you have to do what you have to do. And sometimes we were forced to do that, but we're also trying to find money and grants for totes. So like Moral Hall does, you know, we've used your guys' totes out here for some of our science camps, especially the paleontology one. And we worked with a couple of your people here, is setting something out beforehand. So they have stuff to touch, to feel, to smell. So you're holding up the same thing, you know, in your office or wherever you're doing your presentation. And we've got animals. So we've got a longhorn herd. We have access to horses and chickens and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how we can get that out and how well that that can be with digital. And we'll just use, you know, like a phone or iPad for a hotspot. But we're pretty excited about it. We'll just see what happens, because I'm an outgoing person. I love going and talking to kids. It was one of my favorite part of my previous job, and we haven't seen any children in here for you know, since what was it, September of 2019. So we're feeling it.
So we just started doing virtual tours. We've been learning about them, but then this year I pulled the Band-Aid off because I was so scared to do it and I wanted to make sure it was perfect, and you really have to just get over the jitters and just do it. And it went really, really well. So we charge basically $2 a kid, enough to cover what we send them, is really because we send them a box ahead of time that has like coloring books in it and crayons and their official sticker that they've gone through tree and safety training. We have a game that we play, and so we send them the game boards, and the game boards need Skittles, so we send them the Skittles. So that's all in like this little box that we send them. So basically we do, we've been doing, it's for a group of 25, $50. And like I said, it covers our box is essentially what it covers. And then we also send them a free pass to come back and visit us, because we feel like that's where we'll make the money money back is when they actually come to the store and they buy something in a gift store or whatnot. And so that's what we've been doing. And like I said, we've just gotten started with it, but it's been good. And honestly, the cleanup is way better doing a virtual tour than it ever is in person. Some of the flack that we're getting is we don't allow more than 30 kids, just because it's hard for that engagement, because we want them to come up to the screen. We ask them, like, what's in your boxcar? Because we talk about the different kinds of trains and we want to know, what do you have? And so that's been the biggest flack that we've got, is that we won't do 2 classes at one time, because to keep it in that 30-minute time frame and have engagement. But once we explain it to teachers and once they actually go through the class itself, then they've been really good about it. And so, and I agree, teachers talk. And so thank God, you do a good job, and then they tell each other, and it's been a referral program so far. So that's why I was wondering about marketing. So thank you guys.
We're a little bit different, actually. I'll share this, and then I got to pop out. We don't send any box or anything like that to the school. Part of it is we don't necessarily trust the postal system right now, and no fault to them, but there's a lot of snow places and they might not get it. A lot of our teachers will call us Monday and want it Thursday. So I'm like, I'm not going to pay to rush this to you. So we just, any activity that we have them do, we make sure it's stuff they're going to have in the classroom, like paper. The teacher gets a sheet beforehand, what they need to do. We did toy with trunks, and we kind of want to do one, but more of a, like, you can check out this tote of like paleontology, and that's like a side thing. It's not necessarily our program, which is we charge, the most we charge is $45 a classroom. If we have 2 classes that want to do it at the same time, we tell them that it's still $45 each. And if they want to do it at the same time, meaning also from the same school, I should be clear about that. We'll just have 3 screens now. We ask them not to combine their classes. Please keep them in their rooms, so that way they can still do all the activities as them. It does make it harder for you as the presenter, because not only you have to do with teacher A, you have to be with teacher B. But yeah, we're the same, but we really tell them, like, you can just do that one class. It'll be much better for everyone, we promise. Good. And then they're usually pretty good at, once they see it.
Yeah, once they see it, or once you explain to them that you want to have that engagement, because we're just like you, where we have a different activity every 5 minutes. And if you have 2 classes, it's really hard to get to that next activity. So classroom 1 is bored by the time you get to classroom 2. So yeah. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna step out. If you guys have questions, feel free to send me an email. But otherwise, yeah. And I think I talked in April, something with program. I signed up to present 2 years ago. So I do something with programs in April too. So
yes, yeah. At the conference, the virtual conference.
Yes, at the conference.
Yes.
But yeah, feel free to email me. Otherwise, have a glorious Friday.
Another thing that you can do too, and I did this in person, but I think this would work just as well in virtual, is I would go to a school and there's 3, 4th grade classes. I would just do those 3 classes back to back. And then that way you kind of have everything ready. I had everything in my trunk, in my little wheel cart. And so whatever I would do, I would just, unload, just get my presentation, load it up. They allowed me a couple minutes for setup. But really with the virtual, it should be just be able to click right as you go. So you could do classroom. Now it does take up, an hour and a half of your time, but I mean, to me, it's better engagement, and you can justify more that you're doing for the price point. For the price, you're justifying your class is getting this specific class, specific service, but we just can't do it all together because you lose so much when you have that bigger group. But that's an option also.
Great. Well, we've gone way over time, but we've had some great questions and great discussions, so that's fantastic. I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts or questions they want to ask. Does anybody have any topic ideas for next month? Anything they want to know about, or questions they have, or something you want to talk about yourself? Okay, no ideas right now. That's fine. We'll think of something.
I got one. We're getting into podcasting.
Okay.
And I don't know how it's going to go. I've kind of been putting it to the back burner because but I told the media that I have it out this month. So I'm slowly getting way late, but just ideas and stuff if anybody else is doing it. And another thing is that we've had some podcasts that schools use for like 10 minutes. They'll pick a podcast and they'll play it. And for museums, especially if you're a museum that is focused on the history of the area, like the city history or stuff like that, there's very little of that in education in the curriculum. It's all like Nebraska history or Oregon Trail or, you know, I don't know, paleontology, stuff like that, but you don't really get into the history of the cities. So that's one of the areas we're going to focus on too, but it might be an interesting topic if anybody else.
Yeah, we'll definitely think about it, but it sounds like it could be a good topic idea. I like it. So.
I do know another thing that we're just starting to work on now is creating, pretty much by accident, creating some asynchronous programs. So because asynchronous learning has become big for teachers, especially for, well, in this time frame, but also it's been big for them for their high ability learners. So for their kids who have learned everything they can about paleontology within the classroom, but they want to know more. So that might be something that how you can take, how you already do your exhibits and make it into an asynchronous. We've kind of messed around with it a little bit. I'm not sure we have figured it out for us, but just now, if people are interested.
Yeah, no, that's great too. Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, and we hope to see you next month. I don't know, Annie, if you're still the host at all or not, but I'm going to stop recording now, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Bye.